Welcome to the Cryptid Adventurers. I'm Buzz.
And I am Zach.
And we are now coming out of the shadows, so to speak. Because
Ooh.
we're not green behind the ears when it comes to supernatural, paranormal, ufology, or cryptozoology. Because actually, we have been running a podcast, regular podcast, weekly podcast for, 2 years?
2 years. That's the Now We Know Show podcast. Those familiar to the Zak Wylde Productions channel, you'll know what that is by now.
Exactly. And some of our we cover all sorts of subjects, don't we, Zach?
Oh, yeah.
And some of our most popular subjects
have always been the cryptozoology ones, where we're talking about Bigfoot, Mothman, Dogman, Beast with Bob and Moore, folklore episodes.
Everybody loves it.
All these things.
When we get a special guest in, like Glenn Sharp, who comes in, who's our cryptozoologist expert, and they've been really popular episodes.
Exactly, yes.
Now, talking about Glenn, Glenn recently asked us if we wanted to go and visit the Cryptid Conference UK, run by Daniel
Lee Barnett.
That's right. Very nice young man indeed.
Oh, I should have brought the bat.
Bat,
it's downstairs in the lower studio.
If you want to see the bat, you can go back to, is it last week's?
It was last week's podcast. That was the Cryptid Conference UK, episode 110 of the Now We Know Show podcast.
110?
Yeah.
See what I mean? We're not green behind the ears when it comes to this. But what we've got is we've been so kind of like, I don't know, sort of encouraged by Glenn, and I've personally I've kind of stayed in the shadows,
on the fringes,
the fringes for years now.
Of this community,
You know, I've got a huge library of books about subjects, and as I've already said,
it's always been an interest.
Already said, we've got plenty of our own experiences, things that we will continue to further
delve into
and share. And we are going to be going out there, and doing
on location
adventures. That's why we're the Cryptid
exploring
Adventurers.
the paranormal,
all sorts of things we're going to be doing in future episodes. But we thought we'd just come from now, just saying that we have taken that step.
Yes,
out of the shadows into the light.
We went to the waving to the community, saying, "Hello, community. We are the Cryptid Adventurers,
we went
and
to,
this is what we're about."
We went to the Cryptid conference, and we kind of like stayed low profile.
Well, I did win the bat. I did win the bat,
but we just wanted to soak it up and see what it was like, and it's a fantastic community.
Yeah, it seemed to be extraordinarily welcoming, and everyone was friendly, and that was really.
I think
impressive.
That was the final thing that kind of has decided that we're going to take this step, because all our other podcast episodes have been very, very popular. We just thought it's time maybe we should go for the focused episodes, just focused on that.
Like a
subject.
Dedicated thing.
Yeah, that's a good dedicated show all about cryptozoology, UFOs, paranormal,
etc.
all that, you know, because it's what we like. And we thought in this first one, we would pose the question
of:
do
we believe?
Well, yes. So I'm going to ask you that.
It's a very broad question.
It is, and it's a question that comes up to a lot of things. When they have round table discussions and things.
Exactly.
So, Zach, do
you believe in cryptids? Well, first off, it would be a bit strange if I was doing a show / a video if I didn't believe in them. But perhaps I should be more specific. I believe in the possibility of them.
Right. Okay.
I believe that there are unexplained things in this world, things that don't have answers that people need to search for, and I believe we can be the ones to do that.
Well, we hope so.
Joining the community of people that have essentially gone against the curb of the naysayers who say, nope, everything there is to know about life in the universe, we know it pretty much.
Yeah, there is
on a base level.
There's nothing else to discover out there.
Yeah, nothing is new. I say yes, there is. So that's why we're going to go out into the world
and follow
adventure
and do what we do best, which is adventure, because that's what we've done for years. I mean, we are basically explorers and adventurers. We go out all the time. We
love the outside. We love the outdoors.
Spent all my life.
We have the free air.
Exactly, and I've spent my whole life since a kid, basically. And don't get this wrong when I say it, hunting and shooting animals. When I say that, I mean tracking them, hunting and shooting them with a camera or video. Taking photos.
There we go.
When I was a young kid, I didn't even own a camera. but I used to just go out into the woods, track animals, and had nothing. There was nothing better than to be able to track an animal, follow it, and then find that you've come across, say, somewhere like North Church Common, which is in Hertfordshire near Ashridge, and then you come up and you find a whole herd of deer and things because you've been tracking them through the forest.
Well, that's the thing. We live now in the age of technology where cameras, video equipment.
Yeah, I had none of that.
All these like EMF detectors, electromagnetic spectrum detectors.
I might have a cine camera one day.
Cameras. I mean, we're using a cine camera right now.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about
Well, yeah, okay, that would have been groundbreaking at the time.
Splicing all the film together.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah,
that would have been.
Yeah,
that would have been fun.
Patterson Gimli Bigfoot videos.
Gimli, not Gimli.
Gimli. I say Gimli.
You're a Lord of the Rings fan.
Lord of the Rings
Could
fan.
you tell?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the beard.
It's the beard.
Get it? Get it? The beard.
Technically, I do play a dwarf. I have been in Moria, by the way.
Oh.
Well, you might find out more about that.
Anyway, back to where we are.
Back to where we were.
Where were we?
We were tracking animals and using camera equipment.
Yes, and that's where I chimed in and said,
yes,
we live in the age of technology.
We do.
And that just makes the possibility of finding these things, searching for these things, so much easier.
It's so much easier, but also harder in certain ways because, let's face it, we are both bat surveyors. And for years we've been out there using infrared camera at night and at dawns. We basically live a crepuscular lifestyle, don't we?
Crepuscular lifestyle.
A crepuscular lifestyle.
Do you dare? Can you explain that to our wonderful viewers?
Creatures that are crepuscular are ones that basically come out. Their main feeding and hunting times are just around and after sunset and just before and during dawn. And then they will go to sleep. So it's that the twilight animals, you see.
Yeah.
And so we tend to be out in the countryside. We end up in towns as well, but we're out there when everybody else is in bed or when everybody else is just sort of thinking about getting up for breakfast. We've already been out there for hours and we're out there all over the place.
Well, that is the funny thing. So often we'll do dawns.
Yep.
Well, we refer to them as dawns because essentially they're surveys that occur during the dawn hours. And essentially when everyone is essentially living the typical 9 to 5, they are leaving for work when we're getting back.
Exactly. And so for years
we work odd hours.
Yeah, we've been doing those dusks and then literally, finishing a dusk around sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock and then driving to the next survey, getting an hour or two's kip if we're lucky, and then doing the dawn, and then we're heading back while everybody else is just having their breakfast.
Exactly.
So we have spent so much time, and we do spend so much time, and outside of the job of being bat surveyors, we're also bushcrafters and survivalists, and we spend all our spare time out in the forests.
We love the outdoors,
and this is why I kind of say it's hard. It's hard to see these cryptids because. You think about it, the amount of years that I have had trail cameras out there and you don't get to see things all the time, like regularly.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to, if you like, the big cat sightings in the UK, which kind of come under the cryptid heading.
They're always used in the same kind of conversations.
Yeah, although a cryptid is an animal from sort of fantasy that people have said they've seen, but it's never been proven to be seen. Whereas one of the big cats, a puma, a lynx,
they are known to be out there.
But we get so many sighting reports in the UK, and I'm on the trail. I would love to catch some real hard evidence of seeing that. And that, as far as I'm concerned, do I believe? Yes. UK, we do have big cats. They are out there, and they are in the community, out in the countryside, and people do see them. But there's still people out there that won't believe that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true.
So what we're going to try and do is hopefully blow some of these myths out of the water, hopefully find evidence that can prove these things, or at least, substantiate some of this stuff.
Yeah, because there are plenty of conversations regarding these 4 types of topics that we can basically unpack in these videos and discuss further. Exactly.
There's so many sightings and things. I mean, obviously we're UK based, so that's what we focus on. I have been, back in my 20s, I went on explorations to America, to
tell you what, did you find anything?
North Carolina, found lots of bear tracks. North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. And when you're there and you see things like the Smoky Mountains just rolling on for literally hundreds of miles, you can really see why in America there is, again, I have no doubt that there is something.
Well, in that sense, there is obviously a much greater potential for instance, the classic Bigfoot to be there.
Yeah, we do have the so-called UK Bigfoot sightings, and that's something that's going to come up in discussion. I think.
Definitely, yeah. That's a big one
because there are so many different aspects and avenues for Bigfoot. So anyway, we believe.
Yes.
Okay, we believe, and it's like, for example, I can say I've never been to Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
but I believe the pyramids exist, even though I physically haven't seen them. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So I think I haven't seen a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I haven't seen, one of the dark-eyed children from Cannock Chase.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one, but I'd love to.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I
that's
believe there is something out there.
Exactly.
That is the basis for these sightings.
And that is very true.
So that leaves us on to a question that I would, I think you should ask first.
So Buzz.
Yeah.
What was, if you have had one, your first encounter with one of these things, a cryptid?
Right. Okay. Okay. So,
did you have one? Have you had one?
Right. So
and if you did, what was it?
Okay. So what sparked my interest in this subject? Okay, is I'm going to answer like a twofold question here.
Twofold question.
Okay. What got me into it, and what my first experience was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd say my first experience, what was probably, I didn't realise it was a cryptid experience at the time.
Yeah.
Because I was probably about 5 years old.
Okay.
But for all my life, I have always had this story that's sort of run through the family, and especially told by my mother, that when we were, and this is the thing, I do recollect, I remember being small, because I remember sitting on the back seat of the car we were in, and the side windows of the car were above my eye level. So I must have been only small, and I really do remember this. But it was my brother, when we were driving along, and I don't know whether we were parked or we were in motion, but he said he exclaimed that he'd seen a fairy. At which point, the whole car, everybody in the car, apart from me because I couldn't see out the window, were all sort of like shifting to the window. There was a mad rush to the window. And he described it, and my mother has repeated this for years. Okay, so that's over 50 years ago. He said it was blue. A blue fairy.
Blue fairy.
Now, what I would like to say about this experience...
So it's not Smurf then?
Don't know, maybe.
Did it have wings?
Well, this is the thing.
Because obviously, fairy folk, fae, they are very much embedded within British folklore.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you can think other things that are in folklore, for example, like pixies and things like that.
Exactly, yes.
But my brother, quite enthusiastically, his outburst was, "I've just seen a fairy." Now, the point I'm going to make is, if I was about 5, that would have made him about 13.
Yeah.
Right. So because I've said to my mother before, do you think he just saw a blue butterfly? Now, I think a small child might see a blue butterfly and say,
about 13. Yeah.
Say, is that a fairy? Is that a fairy? But a 13-year-old,
would know the difference between a butterfly and
something that looks
and something of supernatural origin.
For somebody just to turn out and say, "I just saw a fairy," at 13.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
It does. It
makes you think. My brother was very level-headed. He was into his mechanics and things like that. He was like, so...
he doesn't have his head in the clouds or anything. This is a...
But I do remember the moment that occurred.
Normal 13-year-old.
I do remember the moment that occurred, and the story has continued for all these years. I never saw it myself.
Okay.
But that would be the earliest kind of thing that's happened.
In that sense, in that situation in the car, was it more than just him?
Yeah, there would have been myself, 2 sisters, brother, mother and father.
Did any of the other ones in the car see it?
Well, I don't think they did, because my mother still refers to my brother saw it.
Right. So that would insinuate that she didn't.
I do remember this. I think I've asked my mother about this. I said, where was it in the UK? And she said that we it was probably one of the many times we used to go out into the countryside around Ashridge, North Church Common, Ivanhoe Beacon that you filmed over that way before, because they used to go out. There was used to collect lots of damsons and wild plums and things for making wine.
Yeah.
And as kids, we used to go out and get the blackberries, especially this time of the year. The blackberries are coming out, so we used to go out at weekends.
So in these things, it goes back to that idea that we were very outsidey people. When you have always been an outsidey person, because in nowadays in modern culture, you would not. I don't imagine most children wouldn't be doing such things.
Well,
so therefore, by that delineation, the possibility of seeing such things now would be diminished.
Well, certainly we weren't out. There was no mobile phones. There's no satellite TV, no streaming, no computers, no computers, no anything. So for my brother to come out with that, to explain that, and then for everybody in the car to suddenly rush to the windows of the one side of the car to look, and that's stuck. So that is the earliest cryptid interaction, if you want to call it that I remember. But at the time, that's not what got me into this whole world of cryptids, etc. But I would say probably not long after that, probably by the time I was about 8.
Yep.
I'm gonna say, bless my mother and father, they used to let me watch all the old Universal monster movies.
That is good parenting right there.
That's good parenting. And I remember this was primary school, and my friend Loz, he'd also watched The Wolfman, not with me, but at his house the night before, and we were in primary school, which means that we're probably about 8 years old, and we went out at break. There was a climbing frame in the school field, which, because it was heavily used, just had literally no grass underneath.
So no tarmac or anything, but before those days,
no rubbery tarmac. This is like a metal climbing frame that went out probably about 15 feet up in the air, and if you fell out, you just fell out and hit the dirt. And anyway, so
Classic.
But the thing was, it had mud underneath it, and when we went out, yes, it was a very large dog print. But the point I'm saying with this story is that when we went out at playtime, there was this really big, almost wolf-like print in the mud, really clear. And we ran back to our teacher saying, Miss, there is a werewolf. A werewolf has been in the plane. A werewolf.
How old were you at this point?
Must have been about 8 years old.
Okay, so this is after the fairy incident.
So after the fairy incident. And bless my teacher, rather than saying, don't be stupid, away with you, she actually turned it into kind of a lesson, and she said, is there really? And she came and looked, and then she went and got plaster of Paris and cardboard and showed us how to basically take a casting of a print.
Wow.
And it was from that point,
that's cool.
It was from that point that was when I really started to get into the whole idea of tracking animals, taking casts. And because of my liking for like horror movies and things as a kid, and building that the whole idea of werewolves and vampires and things kind of like stuck with me. Well, and,
on that front, just throwing things around here, I remember, I think it was a year or two ago, that there were reports on a bit of property we kind of look after, that something had been kind of, I don't want to say rampaging, but around this area, and there were lots of tracks and stuff everywhere. And I remember when we essentially went down there to check this all out, and essentially we followed this like trail all the way around the kind of circumference of this area.
There's a few acres there.
Exactly. And essentially we ended up tracking it back to its field of origin. Obviously it wasn't anything supernatural. It was a herd of cows or cow.
That's what it was, as you quite right. A herd of... We'd got a report from somebody else who'd gone onto the property who wasn't trespassing. They were allowed to be there. But they had absolutely no idea of what hell had been going on. They said, there's just all these... they thought they were horses. They said, they had all these horses on the land.
Exactly.
And obviously, and they were in a bit of panic about it. So that's why we went down there. And then, of course, I took a look at the tracks and said, no, they're cows, obviously. And then we had to track the cows to where they'd broken through their fence to get into the property. But then we spent the rest of the day tracking the cows down. and getting them back to where they came from. And there was one rogue one, wasn't there?
Yeah,
and
a very adventurous cow.
But literally, that was track. It wasn't it showing us the tracks in the mud. We were looking for broken blades of grass, impressions where you could see where it stopped, laid down.
Yeah.
Made it like
an impression.
Scratch, an impression where it had a rest, got up, and it was about 2 miles away.
And that was the thing. That was the point that I was going to make. There is, I remember you saying to me after the fact that you were impressed by my tracking skills.
You obviously picked up,
and obviously from growing up, obviously from your enthusiasm
your
tutorage, and obviously your experience with it yourself, that has obviously that knowledge and information has transferred over to me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my father had a lot of input on that when I was young, but then I spent the rest of my life just adventuring by myself.
Yeah,
obviously having you come along has basically
allowed
me to share the skill and experience with you.
Yeah,
but for you, you've just grown up with it.
Yeah,
and so when we're out there and we're camping out in the middle of nowhere in a forest in the dark.
Yeah.
When we've been with people that are like really
tentative,
really feel unsafe.
Whereas for myself, it's very much kind of like I
feel at home.
a curiosity, just that it's just there all the time. It's something that I was like, oh, what could that be?
I suppose the thing is,
what's that in the bushes over there?
Yeah, what's that crack? Something's broken a stick. And inevitably it turns out to be a muntjac deer, a badger, a fox,
any number of things.
Some red deer or fallow deer or whatever.
It could even be a hedgehog.
But not in the night, especially in the forest.
The mind plays tricks.
Sound even bigger than they.
Yeah, that's a particular idea that I've come to kind of notice more recently is people, when it comes to even with these conversations, is they are very susceptible to inference.
Inference,
like you watch some paranormal shows and things on the TV, and I'm not dissing them by any means, but one of the investigators says, do you feel a presence in front of you? And then it's presented as if, oh, yes, I do. So I don't know how that really...
Yeah.
If people are actually experiencing these supernatural things, or are they just being susceptible to what they've been told within a certain situation.
Or somebody can actually be like in a situation where they're feeling like they're uncomfortable, their hairs are stand up on the end on their neck, but somebody else might be totally comfortable with it.
Exactly.
I mean, an example of that is we do a lot of climbing and abseiling.
Yeah.
And if I've got all my ropes on, we've got our 3 anchor points. I don't even think twice about going backwards over a 200-foot drop. But if I'm up there with no anchor points, no ropes,
then you're tentative.
That sixth sense kicks in that warns you.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, that's the thing.
You
what we're talking about. We've talked here about some very latent things that even as a baby you're scared of. You're scared of falling in the dark. These are very like fears that are deep rooted within
primeval fears.
Exactly.
But they were built into us to keep us safe.
Exactly.
From the night prowling animals. From the things that you can't see in the dark.
Yeah.
From, funny enough, the crepuscular hunters.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm going to finish off with asking you that question. What were your first experiences of anything that's cryptozoology, UFOs,
things like that,
supernatural?
Okay, so I've actually considered this for a while, and there are a few things that pop to mind that have happened within my life that I can't really put definitive answers to. That they have left questions and have got me thinking about what could that have been.
Or what do you experience?
Exactly, and in this instance, again, I was quite young. I would say I was certainly older than your first encounter with, or second-hand encounter with the fairy that you discussed. This must have been in secondary school or middle school if you're living in Bedfordshire. And I was walking home one day, and I can't remember for what reason, but essentially instead of going the normal like street way back home, I decided to take a stroll across the fields behind our house. essentially, and kind of loop back round.
Okay.
If you're familiar with where I live.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like almost like a lakey bit next to a river.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of zone, if you know where I'm thinking about.
Yep.
And there, it was quite overgrown at the time, but I remember suddenly being startled by something jumping through the bushes there, and the grass.
Okay.
And by what I saw, I could not put a definitive description to what it was. What I saw.
I'm intrigued.
So, from what as memory serves, take it with a pinch of salt if you want.
Okay.
But what I could only describe is almost like a fox deer hybrid type thing. Okay. It was jumping like a deer, but had like the head of a fox, but with the antlers. And I was really confused by this encounter, and I couldn't really define what it was other than by that description.
I think you've just described a jackalope.
Well, that's the thing. Post incident, if we will.
I didn't know we had jackalopes in the UK.
Well, there you go. Post incident.
Yep.
Obviously, in later years, obviously, interest in cryptozoology emerged. Blah 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 blah. The only equatable thing I can
match it up to. So if you had a chart and you had to say what one of these came closest,
it would be, as you just said, a jackalope.
I guessed that's where you were going with this. From your description.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And it's really weird because I know the difference between a deer and a fox.
Well, of course you do.
As we've previously discussed, I'm very familiar with the outdoors. Yeah. I'm familiar with these things suddenly happening. But in this particular instance, it was just really weird.
Right.
It was something that never happened again since, and I cannot explain it beyond what I've said.
Okay.
And it's really, really weird.
Okay. Well, there you go.
However...
Okay, more.
As there is more.
There is more.
That was my first one.
Oh, that's first
But it did kind of jog a memory.
Okay.
Another driving one, to equate it to your one. This is actually much later. This was me. It was early in the morning. Right. I was actually driving to, I believe it was obviously some kind of filming location. Okay. I was heading south on the A1, and just before you go underneath the Hatfield Tunnel...
Yeah, where the Galleria is, for those people that know it.
Yeah. I looked to the sky.
Yep.
And what I saw was what I assumed was a shooting star.
Yep.
Going through the sky.
Isn't it?
Yeah. However, it looked remarkably large and quite close to other ones of that description. But it's really weird. It's kind of like, as it was going through the sky, it was kind of really bright and moved relatively fast at a motion, like a constant speed, then kind of stopped, like being bright.
Okay. Did it stop motion?
Well, you just couldn't see it then, and then it kind of made an unnatural movement, and then came back on again. And I was like, "How did you suddenly you're going straight down, like all bright and colourful or whatever? It was just a bright light." Off. Then a couple of moments later, before I'm going under the tunnel, back on again.
Okay, interesting.
I'm not saying that was aliens. It could have been a shooting star. It could have been a lot of things.
But it's something that's.
But it was an unnatural motion that, again, I can't explain.
Right. Well, jumping in there, I have over the years, I've got a file full of UFO, or as they like to call them, UAP sightings of my own over the years. And yes, I have seen, with other witnesses as well, objects which have literally been, as if you're looking at a star in the sky. So it looks like a star, and then it suddenly moved at a hugely rapid speed across the sky, stopped dead. Yeah. And then shot up at a completely oblique angle.
Yeah.
Stopped
dead. And unnatural, yeah.
And then shot up and disappeared. That, again, I've seen these things. I have no doubt what these unidentified aerial phenomenon exist, but what they are
has to be explained.
Has to be explained, and that's basically what we hope to do.
Yes,
is to hopefully, in our adventures, learn more about these cryptids and paranormal activity.
For more discussions, go on these adventures.
Yeah, I track down some of these things that I'm fascinated.
Get the cameras out. We're very versed in recording such things.
We've been places like Cannock Chase before. I want to return there because my interest in the black-eyed child or children has been.
That was especially piqued by the Cryptid conference.
The Cryptid conference
because it kept coming up again and again. Black-eyed children, black-eyed children.
That back to me,
and I was like, this is something I haven't really heard of before.
Well, I've mapped out sighting spots, where they've been seen. I've read the books that have accounts of them. I would like to go back and visit these areas. Whether we see anything or not, I don't know. I'd love to.
But that's the point. We're going. We have the minds and the resources to put action to our words, to go out and do these things,
and we have the experience
to search, to hunt,
we have
to research
in the wild,
which is probably going to do us great benefits. In our searches.
So, which leaves us with saying, if you've got any kind of things you want to share with us, whether they be UFOs, UAPs, cryptid sightings, ghosts, paranormal. I mean, don't forget Mickey.
Mickey Bolden,
Mickey Bolden. He's our
paranormal investigator and spirit medium.
You know, he's come in and spoken about the supernatural before, and ghosts and things. So, let us know.
Give us some feedback.
Tell
us what you would like us to discuss. If you've got any questions that you'd like us to discuss in future videos, please let us know.
If you'd like, or feel comfortable with us coming and interviewing you, you don't have to put your name down, or you don't have to go on camera. But if you're interested, if you've got something you want to tell us, you want us to investigate, then get in touch.
It'd be very interesting, and we have a great passion for that.
Yeah,
and we would love to know. That's part of our ethos is to discover new things.
I think our prime directive is basically to try and, by a scientific approach, to try and put some real tangible evidence in place for these things.
But also, like practically, from also this scientific viewpoint, we don't want to glamorize anything. We don't want to over speculate, go too far down the rabbit hole that there's no seeing the light of day again.
Yeah, exactly.
We want
the whole rabbit hole, or are you talking about through the portal?
I thought you were going to go to jackalope hole. Do jackalopes live in holes? I don't know.
Maybe that's something we need to investigate.
It'd have to be a big hole with the antlers.
Maybe.
Anyway, yes. This is all things we look to uncover going forward.
Exactly. So, help us out. So that's it for our first episode of the
Cryptid Adventurers.
And we look forward to coming back in the future with more episodes.
Yeah, wonderful questions that need to be answered.
And hopefully having some answers for those questions.
Exactly.
And sharing with you our own experiences and basically looking into everything that the community is into. I think there is such a lot that needs investigating, such a lot that we are absolutely fascinated in to find out the answers to.